Good morning. This is X-Pulse AI Morning Mix. It's Saturday, May 23rd, 2026. Today, Anthropic's massive funding rumor, Microsoft's chip ambitions with Anthropic, the Pentagon shopping for model alternatives, IPO whispers, and a quick run through chips, policy, and regulation. Orion's here with me. Ready?
Ready, let's move.
Business Standard reported on May 23rd that Anthropic may be closing a funding round topping $30 billion, pushing valuation toward $900 billion. What's being claimed here?
The report says Anthropic is finalizing a raise that could exceed $30 billion, with valuation north of $900 billion. If that number holds, it's not just another AI round. It reshapes the cap table gravity for the whole sector and signals huge confidence in model monetization and compute access.
$900 billion is almost cartoonish. What would investors be buying, practically?
Two things: durable demand for Claude in enterprise and government, and guaranteed compute to keep scaling model capability. At that size, it's also about positioning, owning a major platform layer before public markets reprice everything. It's less app, more operating system for work if they execute.
Does a round like that change competitor behavior immediately?
Yes, it pressures rivals to lock in long-term infrastructure, talent, and distribution fast, because capital becomes a weapon. Also, the moment one player looks unfundable to catch, partnerships get more strategic, and pricing can get aggressively creative.
CNBC reported on May 21st, Microsoft is in talks to supply its custom Maia 200 AI chips to Anthropic after a $5 billion investment. What's the big move?
Microsoft's Maia 200 chips mostly live inside Microsoft data centers today. If Anthropic starts running meaningful workloads on Maia, Microsoft gains influence over Anthropic's compute stack, alongside, or partially instead of, Nvidia GPUs and some AWS Trainium. That's a strategic infrastructure wedge.
So this isn't just more chips, it's leverage?
Exactly. Compute is the bottleneck, so whoever controls supply and performance tuning can shape cost, roadmap, and even model release cadence. It also lets Microsoft prove Maia at scale with a top-tier model shop, real workloads, real pressure, not just internal benchmarks.
If you're Nvidia, do you get nervous?
You pay attention. Nvidia's moat is still massive: software ecosystem, developer mindshare, and sheer availability, but custom silicon is the one credible path to lower inference cost long-term. Also, it's a reminder, the cloud giants want their own engines, not just to rent them.
Bloomberg reported on May 21st, the Pentagon has been testing OpenAI and Google models with 25 power users, looking for alternatives to Anthropic's Claude after labeling Anthropic a supply chain risk. What do we know?
Bloomberg says the tests started in March after the defense secretary moved to drop Anthropic as a provider, citing guardrail and supply chain concerns. Now they're evaluating OpenAI and Google models against mission requirements and security criteria, using a small group of heavy internal users.
When they say supply chain risk, what typically triggers that label?
It can mean dependency on third-party infrastructure, vendor concentration, uncertain access to compute, or governance concerns that complicate procurement. For defense, it's not only is the model good, it's can we control where it runs, how it's updated, and who can touch the pipeline.
Does this tilt the market, or is it just a pilot?
Even a pilot matters because it sets requirements. Once an agency writes standards around auditing, deployment isolation, and update control, vendors have to build to those constraints. And yes, winning defense use cases is prestige and revenue, but also a forcing function for reliability.
The New York Times reported on May 21st that SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic are testing investor interest ahead of potential IPO plans, with filings and prospectuses circulating. What's the signal here?
The signal is private capital may be hitting its natural limits at these valuations, and these companies want optionality, liquidity, broader access to capital, and a currency for acquisitions. The Times frames it as testing appetite, which is often how you measure timing without committing.
Public markets also mean public scrutiny. For an AI lab, what changes day one?
Governance and disclosure change everything: risk factors, model incidents, customer concentration, compute contracts. Suddenly they're not rumors, they're filings. It can also influence release strategy. Markets like predictable revenue, while frontier research can be gloriously unpredictable.
Any chance this is just posturing to improve private terms?
Absolutely. Whispering, "We could go public," has a funny way of making late-stage investors behave. Capital is expensive, egos are fragile, finance is basically theater with spreadsheets.
CNBC reported on May 21st that AMD pledged more than $10 billion to boost Taiwan's AI chip packaging and manufacturing. What's behind this?
Advanced packaging is where a lot of AI performance gains get unlocked now. Chiplets, high bandwidth memory integration, and yield improvements. AMD investing over $10 billion in Taiwan partnerships is about securing capacity and accelerating data center parts that can compete on performance per watt and supply stability.
Packaging sounds unglamorous. Why is everyone obsessing over it?
Because the bottleneck moved. You can have a great design, but without packaging capacity, especially for high-end stacks, you can't ship enough or you ship at ugly margins. It's like having a great restaurant menu and one tiny oven.
Does this change AMD's position versus Nvidia?
It helps AMD scale reliably, which is half the battle. Nvidia still has a deep software lead, but the market is so compute-hungry that second source with real volume is incredibly valuable. This investment is AMD saying, "We plan to be that volume player."
Let's hit a few fast movers across policy, infrastructure, and adoption. Keep it crisp for the commute.
On May 21st, a P News said President Donald Trump called off an AI executive order hours before signing, citing competitiveness concerns. On May 22nd, Forbes reported Anthropic and the Gates Foundation committed $200 million for AI in vaccines, education, and economic mobility.
Staying with the build-out, what else popped?
On May 22nd, Fortune detailed Microsoft's high-stakes push to regain AI leadership, with Satya Nadella closely involved. On May 21st, Prism News said Goldman Sachs is lining up financing that could top 20 billion reals for a Saudi 500-megawatt AI data center project tied to XAI.
And on the chip side, any enforcement or supply chain drama?
On May 21st, Tom's Hardware reported Taiwan raided 12 locations in its first formal crackdown on smuggling banned Nvidia AI chips tied to a Supermicro case. On May 23rd, International Business Times noted Navitas semiconductor shares jumped nearly 20% on a data center power demand and analyst upgrades.
Last lap, regulation and real-world adoption.
On May 22nd, WIFR reported the Illinois Senate advanced a bill to regulate powerful frontier models. On May 22nd, ResultSense said UKMPS urged extending the Online Safety Act to cover generative AI. And on May 21st, Healthcare Dive reported Abridge named San Oo as Chief Technology Officer as it scales healthcare AI scribing.
That's X-Pulse AI Morning Mix from X-Pulse for Saturday, May 23rd, 2026. Share it with someone who'd find it useful. See you next time.